Hey everyone, it's the Ioniq guy here, and today you see two Ioniq 5s next to me. This one here is my 2022 SEL all-wheel drive, and back here is a 2023 Ioniq 5 limited all-wheel drive. Both cars are in digital teal, and they both have the same light-colored interior. So Hyundai was nice enough to lend me the 2023 limited trim for a week to shoot some videos on. So thank you, Hyundai, for doing that. And this is a video I've wanted to make for a long time because when I originally was in the market for an Ioniq 5, the only version I was able to get my hands on in January 2022 was the SEL. The limiteds hadn't begun showing up on dealer lots in any great number. So just in terms of ease of attaining an Ioniq 5, the SEL was available. This one here had actually been sitting on a dealer's lot for almost 30 days. So I got it at MSRP. I financed it at a really good interest rate. This is before the feds really started increasing interest rates. And at that time, it still qualified for the full $7,500 tax credit. So I got this SEL at a very good price, low financing rates, and it's been great. I love the car. But I've always had in the back of my mind the thought that I would prefer to have a limited trim. So I'm going to spend the next week with the limited, and I'm going to shoot a video several days from now, and I'm going to make a decision about whether I want to upgrade from my SEL to a limited. But that's not what today's video is about. Today's video is strictly about the differences between my 2022 SEL all-wheel drive and the 2023 limited all-wheel drive. And I know a lot of you are kind of in that boat. A lot of you really like your SELs, but you wonder, is the grass greener on the other side stepping up to the limited trim? So today we're going to explore all the differences, and I'm going to let you know all about them. So if you're interested, stay tuned. So strictly from an exterior standpoint, there's not a lot of big differences between my 2022 SEL and the 2023 limited. The biggest difference you're first going to notice is the fact that the SEL has black trim around the wheel arches, on the front bumper, along the door sills, and the 23 limited has this matte silver on the wheel arches, the door sills, and the front and rear bumper. The next thing you're going to notice is the different wheels. So for 2023, they kept the two same styles you see here, but the limited trim all-wheel drive does have the 20 inches. That's only on all-wheel drive. Rear-wheel drive limiteds will have this design seen here on my 2022 SEL, which is the 19-inch wheels. And they're much more slab-sided, they're much simpler. These are very complex, they have more holes in them. So I actually kind of prefer the simple design of the SEL. They're easier to clean, and because the sidewalls are a little bit taller on the 19-inch wheels, this car will ride a little bit softer versus a little bit firmer with the 20-inch wheels. The next big thing you're going to notice is that my 2022 SEL has a just standard steel roof, whereas the 2023 limited over here has a all-glass panoramic roof. Something that I didn't notice until getting the 23 limited is it's actually broken up into three separate panels. So you have a glass panel in the back, a bigger glass panel in the middle, and a smaller one in the front. And I don't really know the exact engineering idea behind this. This smaller glass section is more likely to get hit by debris on the road, so it's definitely more cost effective to just replace this thin strip of glass versus if this were one giant piece of glass and replacing that if you had a small chip or something in the front. Now, keen eye observers will also see that my 22 SEL has tinted front windows. This was not standard, but it did have the privacy glass in the back, just as the 2023 limited does. So this 2023 limited does not have tint on the front windows. If I were to upgrade, I would definitely be doing that. Now, my 2022 SEL does not have the surround view camera system, so there are no cameras in the bottom of the side view mirrors, and there is also no camera in the front right here. So the lighting on both of these cars is identical. They both have LED projector headlamps. They both have the same mustache accent light bar. They both have the charging indicator in this black strip in that mustache light bar. So the lighting system is no different between these two cars. That would not play into my decision to upgrade to a limited trim. For 2023 though, the SEL trim did get a big downgrade in the lighting department, and you no longer get the same lighting as you did in the 2022 SEL. So the headlights become reflector type, you lose the mustache accent light bar, and you don't have that charging indicator in the center of the bumper. You will see here on the limited trim that all the windows have a glossy finish around the frame, whereas here on my SEL you have a matte black surround for the windows in the car. And I honestly kind of prefer the matte black. It doesn't show nearly as many fingerprints as the gloss black on the limited trim does. There have also been many examples of this gloss black material that covers the metal underneath, peeling up in the corners here, and then eventually just continuing to peel off. So there is an issue with this gloss black material, and I haven't heard of any issues with the matte black material yet, so keep that in mind as well. Here in the back of the car, you can see same exact style lights. 2022 SELs no longer have these lights. They have a similar looking light, but you lose all these white pixels in the center. You also have your turn signals move from the center of these squares down into the bumper. 2022 SELs also don't have that thin light strip that runs along the bottom of the light bar. So it is a big downgrade for 2023 SELs, and I'm really upset to see that because I loved the look of this lighting. This was one of the major reasons why I didn't even consider an SEL, because I wanted the same lighting as the upgraded version of the Ioniq 5. You'll also notice on my 2022 that I installed a receiver because I do have a trailer that I tow, and I do have the trailer lighting package installed. I did that myself. And that brings me to my next point, is that towing capacity has increased for the 2023 model year. My car is rated for 1,650 pounds, whereas this is rated at 2,300 pounds. So because the limited trim does have advanced parking systems, you do get an extra ultrasonic sensor in all four corners of the car, where in the SEL, you do not have them. In terms of charging and powertrain, everything remains the same for the 2023 limited trim here. You get 320 horsepower, 446 pound-feet of torque, and the same 800-volt battery architecture that allows you to charge from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes at ideal temperatures. The only big difference between my 2022 SEL and the 2023 Limited are the fact that my car did not receive preconditioning for the battery pack from the factory. I had it installed as a software update. I was able to bring my car into the local Hyundai dealer and get the software update done free of charge. It was a technical service bulletin, and that number is T9Q if you need to reference that when you're making your appointment. That is the campaign number for installing the software update. 2023 Ioniq 5s all have battery preconditioning as standard from the factory. And that began about halfway through the 2022 model year. So even late model 2022 all-wheel drive Ioniq 5s have battery preconditioning from the factory. And for 2023 though, all Ioniq 5s have battery preconditioning. Not just all-wheel drives like in 2022, rear-wheel drives and all-wheel drives all have battery preconditioning. So that's something you don't have to be concerned about anymore. But if you do have a 2022 SEL rear-wheel drive or SE rear-wheel drive, you might want to consider stepping up to a 2023 rear-wheel drive Ioniq 5 because you will have that battery preconditioning. You will have much better charging speeds in the wintertime and cold weather. So if charging speeds are critical to you, you might want to look into getting a 2023. But other than that, exterior-wise, not a lot has changed. Same colors are available, except the 2023s are now available in another matte color called Gravity Gold. In terms of cargo capacity, nothing changes between the model years. The car hasn't been redesigned in any sort of manner. So you have the same cubic footage in the SEL 2022 as you do in the 2023 limited trim. But you do lose out on some underfloor storage in the limited trim because you do have the subwoofer under the floor. And you can see that that does take up a decent amount of the underfloor storage. Whereas in my SEL, you have full open underfloor storage. So if you want to put something large and flat, it will fit, whereas over here, it will not. You will also notice that the limited trim does come standard with the cargo cover for the trunk, where the SEL does not. That is an add-on option that you would purchase from your dealer. So in the 2022 SEL and lower trims, For some reason, the headrests in the back of the car are fixed in place. As you can see here, they're literally stitched into the back seat. The center headrest is movable and removable, but the outboard headrests are not. But as you can see here in the limited trim, you do get removable outboard headrests. And you can simply squeeze that in. And if I had them slightly folded forward, I would be able to pull them out. I can't right now because there's not enough clearance. But this is something that I really wish the SEL and even the SE had, because I really like having better rearward visibility. If you're never going to have rear seat passengers, why limit your amount of visibility when you could just pop these out? They're easier to take out and replace if they got stained or something. You just don't have that option in the SEL and lower trims. One of the other big differences in the back of the car is the fact that the limited trim has rear sunshades that you can just pull up. That's on both sides of the vehicle, whereas my SEL does not have these. I do not have kids at the moment, but I could imagine if you have kids, you would really like to have these just to protect them a little bit more from the sun. Now, both vehicles do have the privacy glass in the back, which is nice nonetheless. You have all the same controls. The materials are all the same on the SEL and the limited trim in the back seat. You do have the fake stitching here on the doors, which I thought would have only been on the limited trim, but you can see that both of the vehicles have it. Same lower door materials and same storage cubby right here in the door. Both the limited trim as well as the SEL have the same rear passenger air vents, which is nice. Another difference you're going to see between the limited and the SEL trim is the limited with the center sliding console gets a much bigger little storage space here down behind the center console, while in the SEL you do get a much smaller one that you really can't fit much in. Another difference between the SEL and the limited trim is that the driver's headrest in the SEL does not ratchet forward like the limited trim does. This doesn't really bother me because I have tried the ratcheting function on the limited trim and it doesn't work with my body size or shape, so I leave it in the most far back position anyway, so that's not really an issue for me. Here you can see on the limited trim, I can ratchet forward and up the driver's headrest, and then once it reaches its furthest extent, it pops back into that furthest position. Because the SEL trim does not have a panoramic glass roof, it does have a dome light in the back seat of the car, and it does not have any lights on the grab handles at either side of the car. While here in the limited trim, you do have little lights on the grab handles, and obviously you have the panoramic glass roof, so there's no place to put a center dome light. To make up for the lack of a center mounted dome light as well, the limited trim does have an extra light right here that you can go ahead and turn on its own. These two lights on either side will not illuminate. So if you just want some more ambient lighting in the limited trim, you do have that option to turn this dimmed light on at night. Whereas here in my SEL, you can see that there is no light in this part here. It's just opaque. And that button down here is missing that activates that mood lighting. But both vehicles do have two USB ports on the back side of the center console. Unfortunately, they are USB-A. For 2023, they did not update to USB-C. One of the biggest differences between the SEL and the limited trim is going to be the fact that the limited trim has many more adjustments versus the SEL. Here you can see in my SEL, I have forward up, forward down, rear down, forward, backward, tilting of the back of the seat, forward for the back of the seat, and two-way lumbar. Here on the limited trim, you're going to get the same lower seat control, although this one looks like it rotates more than it moves down. So that is an interesting change. The back can go up, back can go down, recline, two-way lumbar. I am a little bummed to not see four-way lumbar here, but oh well. You can extend the forward calf rest, retract it, and then you can also use the fancy magic reclining seat function here, which is something that's not available on the SEL. The limited trim also has a feature where the seat will move back in its tracks when you power off the car to make getting in and out of the car a little bit easier. Same goes when you get in the car, it'll be in the back position, and then when you sit down, it will move forward upon starting the car. The limited trim does also have 2 memory seats, and the interesting thing is that the car has multiple driver profiles in the center display unit, so you can have up to, I believe, 6 memory seats, because these 2 settings apply only to one profile, and then for the second profile you can have another 2, and for the third profile you can have another 2. So up to 6 seating positions, which is definitely nice if you have a big family that's all going to share the car. On the passenger side of the limited trim, you do have a fully powered seat, which are the same movements as the driver on the SEL. Here on the SEL, you have manual recline, manual up and down, as well as a manual sliding function. So if your passenger has back issues or just prefers to be more comfortable, you're going to have much more range of motion in the limited trim versus the SEL. Materials, again, on the SEL are identical to the limited trim. You have this red stitching, that's real stitching in the panel, as well as the same padded armrest, same materials down here, same storage cubby. Everything's the same in terms of material here. Here is the door panel on the limited trim. You can see everything more or less matches my 2022 SEL. Now the limited trim does have the fancy stainless steel door sill plates on all 4 doors. The limited trim just has a cheapo plastic door sill plate on all 4 doors. Now that we move into the cabin of the 2023 Ioniq 5 Limited, now we're going to see a lot of the features that make people make the jump from the SEL to the Limited. One of my big reasons why I wanted the Limited was for ventilated seats, which the Ioniq 5 Limited has, but no other trim does. There's no option package, there's nothing. I had this feature on my previous car, and in the summertime, I absolutely loved them. So the fact that my SEL does not have ventilated seats is a real bummer for me. If I could have added an option package that added the ventilated seats, I would have totally done that. The Ioniq 5 Limited also has all the fancy self-parking features. It has automatic parallel parking, automatic perpendicular parking. You can drive into a tight spot. You can reverse out of a tight spot. You can do it from within the car. You can do it from outside the car. And after you parallel park, there's a feature called Safe Exit, which will automatically shimmy the car out of a tight parking spot. So that can be all automated. That's one of the big features that this car has. You also have a surround view camera system with trajectory lines. I've found it works fairly well, but when you do have something really close to either side of the car, it really distorts the item that's there, and it kind of makes things a little more confusing, in my opinion, than looking out your windows or just using the traditional rear backup camera. But it also does have a feature where you have an augmented reality look around the car. So you can see here almost a top-down aerial look, like if it were shot from a drone, and then kind of a lower image as well. There's also several views to the backup camera here in the Limited. You can see here a top-down view, which would definitely aid in hooking up a trailer hitch to the car. But I honestly haven't had any issues hooking up my SEL without this view. The standard rear backup camera works well enough. There's also a view that looks down both sides of the car. The Limited trim also has automatic windshield wipers with variable sensitivity. And in my brief testing with them, they seem to work fairly well, very similar to my previous car that had them. And the Limited trim also does have the sliding center console, which you will not find in the SE or the SEL. I honestly don't find it to be that useful for me. With my seat in my driving position, having it all the way forward, which is the way it comes in the SE and the SEL, gives me the perfect amount of elbow space and arm support that I need. I don't need to have it all the way in the back position because then I pretty much have no arm support. So unless I'm trying to get out of the car on the passenger side, which definitely would make it a lot easier, I don't see a big need for the sliding center console, but it is a cool little party trick. The Limited trim also includes an 8-speaker sound system versus the 6 in the SEL and the SE trim. So this adds a center channel up here, as well as a subwoofer in the trunk. And like I mentioned earlier, the subwoofer does eat into a lot of your underfloor trunk space. Another big feature that the limited trim adds on top of the SEL is the heads-up display, or HUD, and that projects a lot of driving information onto the front windshield, so you don't have to take your eyes off the road. You don't have to look down at this driver display anymore. Pretty much all the information you need is on the windshield. You have speed, you have blind spot monitor, lane keeping assist, forward collision warning, distance lines showing you how far you are from the car in front of you. It'll give you navigation instructions if you're using the built-in navigation system. There's an augmented reality mode where it'll point arrows in the direction you need to go depending on your orientation to a turn. There's also a standard mode for the HUD that is just more traditional. It'll display a turning arrow, but it won't move or anything. It's just a fixed image of the turn. So I kind of like it, but I'm going to test it for the next few days and then I'll have my final opinion on it. Same size glove box as in all the other Ioniq 5s. Unfortunately, here in the US, we don't get the cool drawer style, which I'm a big fan of in other countries. The limited trim also has a feature where if you're reversing and you're about to hit something, it will hit the brakes. The SEL will not do that. So obviously, one of the big selling points of the limited trim is this absolutely massive panoramic glass sunroof. And one of the nicest things versus a Tesla or a Mustang Mach-E is that you are able to close this sunshade, which will then block out most of the sun. It's completely opaque and no light gets through, so that is nice. And it is cool how it splits in the middle. Because the ID4 moves forward from the rear all the way to the front, it takes twice as long, makes twice as much noise, so I think Hyundai made the right decision in having it split in the middle and it going twice as fast as in other cars. Another feature you'll only find in the limited trim is the rear seat V2L outlet, which can provide up to 1800 watts of power to your rear seat passengers. And you'll see here in my SEL, there is a space where it would go, but it just doesn't exist. So there you have it, folks. Those are all the differences between my 2022 SEL all-wheel drive and the new 2023 limited all-wheel drive. So I'm going to spend another week with the limited, and then I'm going to come up with a decision as to why I'm going to either upgrade to it or I'm going to stick with my SEL. So in the next week, we'll see how attached I grow to some of the features that the limited trim has that my SEL doesn't. But however I feel at the end of that week is probably going to make me decide whether I want the limited trim or if I'm going to stick with the SEL. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.